Hi, everybody. Today I'm going to be talking about 10 hidden gems. These are books that left an impression on me in one way or another, and they are books that I want to bring more attention to. This is not a ranked list, but let's get started. The first being Electric Forest by Tanith Lee. This is set on a future planet called Indigo, where the government is controlling reproduction, and therefore people are born beautiful, with the exception of a few who are born biologically by accident, as is the case for our main character Magdala, otherwise known as Ugly. She is disfigured and therefore considered a social outcast, but one day a handsome scientist approaches her and claims he can make her beautiful. At the beginning of the story, we seem to be approaching themes such as self-preservation and beauty standards, but as you get into the story, things unfold and may recontextualize those initial themes. This book had me in its grips early on because I was mesmerized by Tanith Lee's prose. I thought it was electric, chromatic, it was unique, unlike anything else I'd ever read before. And I was already researching other books by Tanith Lee before I even got to the halfway point. But what I will say is that this book, unfortunately, is difficult to find in the physical format these days. When I read the ebook version. And then after I finished it, I had to have a physical format. So I found this available at that time. But this is actually not my favorite cover art for this book. My favorite cover art is that by Don Mates, who is Jenny Wirtz's husband. This was one of my favorites in the year that I read it in 2023, and it has stuck with me since. Next book on my list is the shortest, and that is a novella called Purple and Black by K.J. Parker. This is an epistolary story with letters between an emperor and his governor. There is rebellion going on in the empire, and so the emperor is trying to keep order at court in the palace while his governor is out in the field trying to quell the fires of rebellion. And while this is a dire situation, the letter exchanges are hilarious. There is great banter between these two characters who seem to go way back. And then the story deepens into a quite touching friendship that is revealed. But then things take a turn. And I don't want to give away too much because it is so short. So I'm not even going to say what the themes are because I think they could be spoilery. But this is a page turner. It is thoroughly entertaining and well written, excellent character voice. And so I think this is the perfect book to pick up if you need a pick-me-up. Next on my list is A Pale View of Hills by Ishiguro. While Ishiguro is a Nobel Prize-winning author, well known for books such as The Remains of the Day and Never Let Me Go, I feel that his debut novel, A Pale View of Hills, could receive more love. Somewhat like Electric Forest by Tanith Lee, this is a book that gives you more depth and meaning and context when you finish the last page and look back. I won't give away more about that, but I'll go ahead and say that this is told in a dual timeline. We're following a character and her journey in a past timeline in Nagasaki just post the atomic bombing there, when people are recuperating and trying to look ahead and make meaning out of their lives. And then it also explores her present timeline when her daughter is visiting her just past the death and suicide of her other daughter. So this is a story that explores grief. It explores trying to look ahead after devastating circumstances. And it also explores tradition versus progress, feminine ideals. It's not a loud, bombastic type of story, but it has a whole well of depth to it. It's one that left a deep impression on me. And again, because I don't feel like it's talked about as much as some of Ishiguro's other books, I had to mention it on this list. Next on my list is Windhaven by George R. R. Martin and Lisa Tuttle. While George R. R. Martin is well known for A Song of Ice and Fire, this is a story that could appeal to a wide amount of readers as well, especially fantasy readers, I would say, even though it is technically science fiction. It's set on a planet with several islands, and people have these wing-like contraptions to be able to fly from one island to another to disseminate information, but only a few can wear the wings. This story largely explores the fallacy of appeal to tradition, but it's also an intimate character study following a character named Maris from young age to old age. And the story also explores dreams, loss, renewal, and the power of song. This story also has some beautiful melancholic touches. The third part of this story was by far my favorite. And I will say that the prose is accessible, the world building subtle. So this is a story that many readers could quote unquote fly through. Next one on my list is The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. This is a book that I read as a teenager, and then I reread it last year as an adult, and it might be the only reread experience I've ever had that the book touched me more and meant more to me the second time around. This is a story following a unicorn who discovers she might be the last of her kind, but she's on a quest to discover if others like her still exist in the world. And along the way, she accumulates a found family, including an incompetent magician and a woman, a maid who is no longer young. And the story is whimsical, it's playful, it has a good sprinkle of meta humor to it, but at the same time, it has touches of melancholy. It explores regret, it explores letting go with older age or letting go of the past. It's a touching story, and the prose is beautiful. It is stunning. So this is one that I cannot help but recommend. It's not the most plot twisty type of story, so don't expect that. But if you are somebody who is more into themes and beautiful writing, then I highly recommend this fantasy standalone. Next on my list, Ice by Annika Von. This is a dystopian post-apocalyptic story that is set in a world that is somewhat of an ice apocalypse with these frozen ice walls that are cutting through, and there's a totalitarian government that is taking control. We are following this story through a nameless narrator who is pursuing this albino woman, and every time he encounters her, she happens to be with this other man, this mysterious man who is abusing her. This is a story that explores patriarchy, misogyny, abuse, and what I appreciate is how that seemed to intersect with environmental themes. It also explores trauma, and I think that ice is a powerful symbol of how trauma freezes us in place, and yet the ice in this story is dynamic, it is violent, and it is piercing, and it recurs over and over again. It is somewhat of a repetitive story. It has a dreamlike quality to it, and that could wear out on certain readers. It's also interesting if you learn about Annika Von and her story, her background. It is a dark, bleak, cold read, but it is one that I continue to think about. Next on my list is Slade House by David Mitchell. David Mitchell is well known for Cloud Atlas, which I have here and haven't read, Guilty, and The Bone Clocks, which I have here and have read. But I decided to go with Slade House because I hadn't even heard of this book until I finished The Bone Clocks, and I feel it showcases similar strengths that I saw in The Bone Clocks, but in a much shorter format. And it's a wonderful haunted manor story, and what's not to love about that? It starts in the year 1979. We start out following a young boy and his mother who are trying to find this Slade Manor for this musical soiree, and then after that section, we jump forward 9 years to a different character. After that section, we jump forward another 9 years to another character. So we do this 5 times in the story. Each character has this distinct personality, very idiosyncratic, and perfectly written for the decade in which they exist. And the other thing is the setting itself. It is so vivid. It is so picturesque. It's a character in and of itself. The other thing to say is that it has some supernatural touches. It has great humor, but also poignant moments. It explores hope and death and grief. It does have some Easter eggs for The Bone Clocks, so it did help to read that first, but I don't think it's required. I think you can enjoy this as your first Mitchell read if you want to, or before The Bone Clocks, but I think it was very well done, so have to mention it. A Brightness Long Ago by Guy Gavriel Kay makes my list. Guy Gavriel Kay is well known for books like Tigana, The Serentine Mosaic, The Lions of Alrazon, and I've enjoyed all those stories, as well as A Song for a Bond, which is my favorite so far. But I think A Brightness Long Ago could receive more love because it does what Kay loves to do in his stories, but in such an upfront way, which is the exploration of memory and also the exploration of friendship, the connection between people who intersect at a certain moment in life in this serendipitous way and who change the course of their lives, of each other's lives forever. And I think that this does this beautifully with great action scenes. It does it with prominent characters and characters who maybe are not quite so prominent in society or not quite so highly regarded, but each one leaves an impression on the main character that we follow in this story. It's also told as a framed narrative, so we're following this man's story as he's quite old, reflecting back on his youth. And I like the way that the story explores our shift in perception from young age to old age. How, when we're young, we feel like we have all the possibilities before us, that we have all the choices available. But when we're older and looking back, it seems like our lives could have only gone down one path. And there are also some interesting ways of not only exploring the intersection between people who build connections with each other, but also connections in conflict. There are some interesting action scenes and adventurous moments in the story, but it is a melancholic, reflective story as well. And it's also just beautiful in the way that, again, it explores those themes that Kay loves to explore, those of memory and those of connection. Next on my list, The Book of Skulls by Robert Silverberg. Four college roommates make a road trip from the northeastern United States to the desert of Arizona. And the reason for this trip is because one of them is a medieval philology major who ends up translating an ancient text he discovers called the Book of Skulls. And according to this text, there is a monastery hidden in the Arizona desert. And if the four of them present themselves a certain way, then two will achieve immortality, but the other two will die, one by suicide and one by murder. And I think that while we're reading this story and going through this road trip, we can't help but wonder, along with maybe some of the characters, if there's any truth to this idea or this monastery, this idea of immortality, or if this is just some fun college adventure for future storytelling. And of course, I won't give away what the answer to that is. This story is quite male-centric. We do get each character fully fleshed out, the four male characters, and it's a story that explores male identity, male sexuality, in addition to the theme of immortality. Last one, I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. Yes, I know this has been making its rounds and getting more and more popular, but I still want more people to read it. This is a post-apocalyptic novel that follows a young girl, a nameless narrator, and she is living underground with 39 other women, though she is the youngest. That's where the story starts, and I won't say where it goes from there except to say that this is more than just what it means to be female. It does explore that, but it's also about what it means to be human and how our role in community and society and our relationship to the past inform who we are versus construction of self based on a blank slate future. So in that way, I felt like the book was existential, but I also feel like there are aspects of nihilism alongside the existential ones. It's a gem of a novel and one that I'm happy to add to this list, even though it's getting more popular, as I said. So that is it for my 10 hidden gems. Please let me know in the comment section below if you've read any of these books, if you're planning to read any of these books. And also let me know if you have a hidden gem recommendation for me. I love learning about books that aren't talked about enough, so please let me know below. And thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.